Hello, everyone. I'm Pia Renata. Welcome to Rappler Talk Newsmaker. Today, we're speaking with Metro Manila Development Authority Chairperson Benhur Abalos. Thank you for being here, Chairman. All right, so Chairman, our interview today happens right after a very grim development, no? So yesterday we saw the biggest jump in new daily cases ever since the start of the pandemic, 18,000 new cases. This is obviously alarming for everyone, lalo na yung fear Delta variant. We are suspecting that this has something to do with the fact that community transmission is already confirmed in Metro Manila and Laguna, which is right beside NCR. So we've also just emerged from ECQ or Enhanced Community Lockdown. This is the harshest lockdown that we impose in the country. And Malacanang Blue has said na wala namang impact yung, hindi naman makita yung effect ng ECQ till after a few days. But you yesterday pointed out that the reproduction number has gone down from 1.9 to 1.6. And for you, this is some sort of a positive development at least to show that ECQ is working. At the same time, sir, you also reported that Metro Manila vaccination is inching ever higher. We have 4.3 million Metro Manila residents who already got their second dose. And this is 43.5% of the eligible population. But if you look at the entire Metro Manila population of 40 million, that's actually only 30%. So siguro, sir, Chairperson, we can start with the first question. Do you think, as of now, aside from the reproduction value going down, are there any signs that the ECQ we just endured is working? And do you think that we lifted it too soon?
Well, actually, Pia, looking at the numbers right now, we're still not out of the woods. Even though the reproduction or the R naught, the reproduction number, is from 1.9 to 1.67. It's a welcome use, of course, but it's too small. It's too small. Of course, the cases will always keep on increasing, but not that much because of this decrease in the reproduction level. So these 2 weeks will be very critical for us. In fact, the mayors right now of Metro Manila are really committed to the PDITR. We have requested for 50,000 test kits, and I'm glad Senator Gordon and Senator Vince Dizon acceded to this request. Before, we only used to have 25,000 per week. However, what I did is last March, I think it was last March, when we had the highest case of about 32,000. At that time, we requested for 50. That was our barometer for me to request last week for another 50,000. So that's as far as testing is concerned. As far as contact tracing is concerned, I have also requested from the Department of Labor for the extension of the contact tracers because most of them, their contracts will end this August. So the timing is not right. It's good news that Secretary Bello also acceded to this extension. Aside from the fact that DILG already also provided some contact tracers, aside from those that are hired by the LGUs. And with reference to the isolation, we are also requesting from Oplan Kalinga for some more hotels. So these are just some of the things that we're focusing on here.
So, Chairman, with this target of contact tracers, how are we doing in terms of our contact tracing ratio? Because I think last time, parang it was hovering around 1:3, 1:7. When si contact tracing czar Benjamin Magalong was recommending that in an urban setting, it has to be one for every one infected person, dapat matrace 30 to 37 close contacts. So, where are we now in this target?
Well, Mayor Magalong has decreased that projection from 1:30 to about 1:15. That's what he told us before. And according to the DOH, I got the numbers last week. According to Director Balboa, Metro Manila is doing at least 1:12. 1:12. But we're increasing. But what is important to note at this point now here, Pia, is the shift. The shift from the ECQ, or what we call the enhanced community quarantine, having Metro Manila as a whole, talagang naka-locked, hard lockdown, to what we call granular lockdowns. And this is what is being done right now. It's more of a microscopic approach to each and every city. But of course, if you're going to do that, the burden, especially of the resources of feeding the residents of those affected, will be on the LGUs.
Mhm. So, sir, given this shift, no, this shift in mindset na granular lockdowns na lang. Yesterday, you mentioned there are 3,000 granular lockdowns currently enforced in Metro Manila. And then you're saying we need to have more resources to help these communities survive. So, right now, is Metro Manila looking at pooling its resources? Kasi before, city by city, ba, town by town. Pero ngayon na, it's a region-wide problem, right? Our borders are so porous, our people come in and out. Are we looking at also a change, a shift in Metro Manila's strategy to be more unified and centralized in our response? And in what ways will we see this happening in the next few years?
Well, you are right at that perspective, Pia. No? If there's one thing about Metro Manila is that it is not a provincial government. Even the setup, we do not have any governor in Metro Manila. MMDA is just a coordinating body. The mayors are my bosses. I just coordinate with them, coordinate with the national government. I do not have any legislative power, any police power at that. No? So the best that we could do here right now with the mayors is for them voluntarily to act as one. And that is what they've been doing. Planning as one, voting as one, and even later, vaccinating as one. Now, let's go back to this issue about granular like lockdowns. These granular lockdowns right now, we've got 3,600 plus lockdowns. And remember, in a granular lockdowns, you're going to have a lockdown on certain households, probably certain streets, or even one barangay, as what has been done in Pasay. And if you're going to lock them down, you have to provide for the food packages, at least for the lunch, dinner, and even breakfast. How long? At least 2 weeks. So imagine for a city like Quezon City, it is right now about 76 granular lockdowns and other LGUs. It's okay right now. We could still, no, we could still maintain that. But what if this pandemic will go on for another 1 month or probably more? At that point in time, we will be needing the help of the national government. That's why I called up Carl Chua of NEDA the other day and Yusek Rose and told them about the concept of cost sharing. No, about this. As early as now, we must really anticipate this type of problems. Otherwise, if uh, if this will happen, it will be very difficult for our mayors at this point in time. No? So those are as far as lockdowns are concerned. Now, going to the topic of what you're saying that the borders are so porous, we must act as one. Yes, we must act as one not only in Metro Manila, but likewise with our neighbors. Talking of Bulacan, Laguna, Cavite, and Rizal. Because most of the workers and vice versa are from these provinces. They're the ones closest with. That's why, if you will recall the last ECQ that we had, when we also included these four areas, it was very, very effective. And the same strategy must also be taken here, not only in terms of policies, but most importantly, in terms of vaccination. Because for me personally, vaccination is the key here in this pandemic.
Mhm. Oh, that's why, sir, you were saying na yung ibang LGUs sa Metro Manila na na-reach na yung isang target. They can accept people from nearby provinces for vaccination. But sir, just going back to, you said you called NEDA Chief Carl Chua. How much funds were you asking for specifically to be given to enforce this granular lockdown, to provide food packages for these communities? Gaano kalaking pera ito, and how often are you expecting this to be downloaded to Metro Manila?
Well, actually we're not asking for money, Pia. We're just asking for a system. I'm just asking for a system, that as early as now there must be a system in place that if a certain LGU has breached a certain level of expenses and he needs help, and probably some of the factors will be the active cases in these areas and probably the prolonged lockdowns, could there be cost sharing? No, if we could have this formula in mind in the system, at least it will not be that difficult for every LGU. We must prepare for this as early as now because, of course, we've seen what Delta did in other countries, no, in other parts of the world. So as early as now, even is I've got data actually showing that between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, no, of the effect. But even though we must always be prepared for this.
So Chairman, when you say cost sharing, what does this mean? Yung budget ng isang Metro Manila City pwedeng i-share dun sa city na nag-granular lockdown that's exceeding their budget for the granular lockdown. Ganun po ba?
Well, it's like this. For example, if I have to spend so much for a lockdown, I have to spend for lunch, dinner, I'm spending, let's say, 2 million or 1 million. What if baka pwedeng makihati ang DSWD? Kasi DSWD, usually they provide for food packages. So why don't we have a fixed formula? Okay, for this place, I'm going to provide food, one half. Do you provide one half or one fourth or one third? How much? No, as early as now, we could have that kind of a formula in place, that kind of a policy in place.
Okay, and can you just explain to viewers again what is the granular lockdown, and will this concept change now that we're shifting to this as a primary enforcement mechanism to control the spread in Metro Manila?
Well, for the
And
viewers, yes, thank you, Pia. For the viewers, the concept of a granular like lockdown is like this. There's a set of policy instituted by the IATF. Let's say if you're living in a condominium and there are there are COVID patients in one floor, exceeding one or two. There's a formula. So if you reach that level, you must close the whole floor. If you reach another level, not only in one floor but different floors, you must now close the whole building. And that formula even goes to certain households. If one house has a certain number of patients, you close the whole house. If not a number of houses, if not even the whole street, or even the whole subdivision, or worse, even the whole barangay. So under this concept of a granular lockdown, no one could leave the household for 14 days or unless advised by the doctors. So how about their food? The food right then will now be provided by the local government unit. I'm talking now of breakfast, lunch, or even dinner. So in a nutshell, it's just like having a hard lockdown but on a more microscopic level. No, mas maliit na piya. So in so doing, you do not sacrifice the economic activity of the whole city. No, you just do it microscopically. So mas alam ng mayors kung ano yung mga ila-lockdown niya sa bawat lugar. So sa gantong paraan, for me also personally, we must make this effective para wag din ma-sacrifice yung ating ekonomiya para makagalaw naman yung iba. Although marami talagang challenges. That's why as early as now, I'm trying to make a checklist of these challenges and possibly in the future, just work for it para wala na masyadong problema. The executives could just lock down whatever should be locked down without even thinking of the expenses para makatulungan na lang with the national government.
sir, the vaccinated people in these areas under granular lockdown, makaka-exempt ba sila sa lockdown route? Yung they come in and out, they're also subject to that lockdown?
No, unfortunately, they're not PIA because we have studies that even vaccinated could be affected, although most of them are asymptomatic and as such could be carriers. No, but then as always, we will have to leave it to the health experts. But as a matter of policy, talagang ganun eh. Talagang lahat sinasama sa lockdown.
How accepting is the national government, the IATF, with your plan, your strategy to shift to drier lockdowns? Alam natin na yesterday si Secretary Galvez was saying ECQ again will be unsustainable and we need to, di ba meron silang narrative of parang total health of the nation. So when you broach this proposal, how did they accede to it? Is that going to be the strategy from now on, that the ECQ we experienced a few days ago will be the last ECQ from Metro Manila at least?
Well, ECQ is always the last option, Pia, no? Yun na talaga yung last option. Talagang if you have an uncontrollable surge, talagang sobra na ang, let's say, ang number of critical or severe cases or even deaths at that, and the infection is so high all over, should be the last resort. But for the meantime, you also must calibrate the health and with the economy. That is why probably this was the approach right now. This is the approach right now of the IATF. Seeing that there are a lot of jobless people, marami na hong nagugutom sa atin, no? So, kaya nga sabi ko sa inyo, these 2 weeks should be very, very critical. Kaya we're on the ground, we're making sure that those affected areas will be really granularly locked down, no? And it should be very, very effective.
So, sir, the national government is okay with that idea. They approved that idea, that strategy to shift.
Yes, the IATF approved it, and it was approved, of course, because IATF is made up of the secretaries of the cabinet and experts from all over, experts, experts, economists, etc. So, what is important, Pia, is that everything is so fluid right now. As was what was probably 2 weeks ago, no? Yung ginagawa namin ka ngayon, it could be overturned tomorrow because of series of events. You cannot know. But what is important, as long as we control it right now on the ground, and this R naught will keep on going down, that is the secret. But the secret is really, for me, keep on vaccinating, vaccinating, and vaccinating. Because data show that those vaccinated, even if they're affected, most of them are just asymptomatic.
Mhm. Okay, moving towards that, no, yung vaccination rates in Metro Manila. So, 30% of the population, the entire population, has been given their second dose just in Metro Manila. This is 43.5% of the eligible population, the adults who are able to get the vaccine. And sabi ni spokesman Roque na if we hit the 50% vaccination target for the eligible population, this recent ECQ might be the last lockdown ever for Metro Manila. Do you agree with this? Should we stop lockdowns once we hit that target?
Well, it will really depend. Let's look at the Israel model. Let's look at the models from other countries. I think Israel is one of those that has so many vaccinated citizens of its own. But of course, when faced with Delta, they also have these lockdowns in their area and other countries. Let us see where we will be. But for the viewers, so that you could have a clear picture of what's going on, our population is 14 million. 14 million. From the 14 million, let's deduct 30% because 30% are those from ages 0 to 17. So if you deduct it, that will be about 9.8 million. 9.8 million will now be called the eligible population. What PI is saying is that from the 9.8, so far we have vaccinated 4.2 million, 4.2, 287,471. So that's roughly 43.7% of the eligible population is now ably protected, meaning with two doses, two doses. And of those, of the one dose each, it's about 7.4 million. That's about 75.9. But what is important to note here is that if you go to a hospital, most of those at the hospitals will be those persons who are very vulnerable, the senior citizens and the persons with comorbidities. And it is important to note at this point, Pia, that those who received the first dose of our senior citizens is about 929,000, and that's 92%. 92% of all eligible population senior has had one dose. And those who are completely protected or with two doses is about 78% in Metro Manila. That's 790,324. No? So I'm just pointing this out to give you more or less a clear picture of what's happening when it comes to vaccination in Metro Manila.
Hmm. So, sir, Chairman, you pointed out the example of Israel. And in Israel, because nga dumadaming infections despite their 60% vaccination rate for their population, they're now rolling out aggressively Pfizer booster shots. And we know that in the Philippines, our vaccine expert panel has not yet recommended booster shots for Filipinos. But in Metro Manila, are the mayors already pushing for this, seeing that what's happening in Israel and what other countries are doing? Are we preparing for booster shots and earliest now?
Well, as of now, Pia, there are no studies yet by our vaccine experts. We will always rely on the studies of the vaccine experts as early as now. But what is important is this: our national government has procured vaccines, and those from Secretary Galvez, and the LGUs themselves. Local government units have also procured AstraZeneca, and they will be starting to arrive next month or the month after. And not only that, our private corporations through Mr. Joey Concepcion has also procured. No, so with this bulk of vaccines, I only do hope that the vaccine experts will make a study about these booster shots.
So it's possible, Chairman, na yung parating na pre-procure ng mayors can be used as booster shots if the vaccine experts come up with a recommendation.
Well, it will depend really, no? Because, it's also hard to have booster shots. I mean, yung konsensya natin knowing na yung mga kababayan natin sa ibang bansa, sa ibang parte ng ating bansa, hindi pa man lang nakakabakuna.
So
Di
baka
ba?
i-share
Parang,
natin.
oo dapat itignan muna natin, mabakunahan muna natin, and then we go back to priorities. Our doctors, our medical frontliners, and then our senior citizens. For me, that is important. We protect our medical frontliners and our senior citizens. But what is important, of course, para nakakonsensya, dapat alam naman ni Secretary Galvez ito, maganda yung pangaparating na bakuna. Darating naman yung mga galing sa mga cities na in order para lang ma-strategize natin maigi, no? Kung paano gagawin natin dito. Uh, how do you prioritize? Anong timetable mo rito? So what is important right now is immediate. The vaccine experts should make a study about these things.
Okay. And now people are also waiting kung anong effect ng vaccine rates sa daily life natin. Kasi we were all hoping that at a certain point, diba, we will get to see a bit more freedom with our higher vaccination rates, especially for Metro Manila. Right now, our Metro Manila mayors already thinking of how to maximize vaccination rates to save the economy. Like we've seen cities like Sao Paulo, New York, British Columbia, and Canada. They've all started to introduce vaccine requirements for entry into restaurants, museums, and gyms. So, ngayon ba, Metro Manila mayors are already discussing this? And if so, what are the discussions like? What are the factors being considered for imposing these kinds of vaccine requirements for establishments?
Well, actually, Pia, the mayors have not yet been discussing these kind of things, no. But personally, in my opinion, we should also look at this as what Singapore is doing if you have two vaccinations. But as what I was always stating, number one, we must reach a certain level of targets, and only the health experts could provide. For example, in Singapore, they've introduced so many things like eating out for those who have two doses in groups, etc. And I think their vaccination target then is 68%, right? Then, no? But this kind of things should be left with our health experts, whatever they do. We should be, at this point in time, we should really be flexible. No? We should be flexible. Hindi pwedeng puti o puti, itim ko itim. Because every day, ang dami nangyayari. Ang daming variants. We should learn to live with the variants. And by living with it, we should always be flexible with our policy. Just like right now, from a hard lockdown to a granular one, and then these policies of those having two vaccinations. Kaya nga, dapat ngayon pa lang malaman natin, what's our target? Is it 70, 80, 100? Is it 50, 60? At what point? No? At what level of mobility are we talking about? No? So, siguro, not only that, Pia, siguro, we should also get the help of our engineers, of our technical people. Like, for example, if you go out, yung tinatawag nating ventilation, no? Yung mechanical paano yung mga exhaust system mo, yung para bang if you eat in a restaurant like bulgogi, would that help kung if you have this exhaust all over? What type of technology is that, no? This type of things. And of course, we must also review our building code about alfrescos, these things, because right now, iba na, we must really learn how to live with this variants, with this virus here.
Kasi Chairman, you were talking about baka by the end of August, 50% na yung vaccination, and then there's even this talk that we impose ECQ to save Christmas kasi we wanted people to be able to enjoy, go out at least a little bit more than now, diba? And enjoy the holiday season. So given that our vaccine rates are also inching higher, are the Metro Manila mayors even just discussing like a target, like floating around certain figures? Kasi if you wait for experts, di ba, kung hintayin natin experts forever, baka hindi nila alam na priority pala ito ng Metro Manila, for example. Like, is there a push to at least, get a policy going that would help vaccination become some sort of a drive for economic recovery already, like other countries are doing?
Well, actually, right now, I was telling them we should have a benchmarking. Let's look at other countries, how they have performed with the 68% target. With that 68%, with those kind of policies, dumami ba kaso nila? Nagkalat ba ito, etc., etc. And then from that point, kasi we haven't achieved those targets yet. But then what we could do is compile these studies right now. And possibly as early as now, talk with our health experts, our epidemiologists, no? And then let's have our businessmen preparing for this. Parang nga, sabi nga sa akin ng isang grupo, let's have a countdown, chairman. Sabi ko, maganda yan, pero alam nyo, mahirap sa lahat yung naghahanda ka, biglang ita-thumbs down ka eh. So as early as now, let's prep up for this. Let's do studies. Let's compare what's happening abroad because they have that luxury of having so many vaccines. No, what happened to them? Ano mga policy ginawa nila? We could just adapt them. But what is important right now is we really keep on vaccinating and vaccinating. That's why, Pia, of course, ginawa nga namin yung concept that in Metro Manila, we vax as we.
Mhm. And sir, may rising concerns din about vaccine cheats, di ba? Kasi people will line up in another city to get a third shot so
Yeah.
that they're better protected. And then you raised the concern yesterday na dapat may centralized database tayo so that one city can compare, can see if this person applying for vaccine already got the vaccine. And then you said that the DICT was developing a database but hindi pa siya ready and you can't wait for it anymore. You're just gonna go ahead and find a way to eliminate these, to make sure walang vaccine cheating. Do you get a sense, sir, that this should have been planned better ahead of time? The concept of a centralized database for vaccines isn't that kind of a no-brainer? How come ngayon lang to ginagawa?
Well, number one, no, let me just explain this issue about VVAX as one. Yung munang, kasi with vaccination, nauuna yung mga maliliit na lugar eh. I'm talking of San Juan, Pateros, and Mandaluyong. So kami nagmamapping out na kami, halos patapos na kami. Instead of shutting down our operations, we thought, why not just continue with the operations and then just vaccinate everyone from Metro Manila? And then later on, anyone from Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal, no, our neighbors. So that's why we had this concept of VVAX as one. So right now, only two LGUs, it's Mandaluyong and Pateros. And then I had a talk with Mayor of San Juan, Mayor Zamora, sabi niya kung matatapos siya. And also si Mayor Marcy, no, sabi niya matatapos na rin siya. So that's our concept. Number one, in order to safeguard this, we will be having forms. No? Lalagay mo roon, hindi ka pa nababakunahan, etc. So that alone, liable ka for falsification. Number two, safeguard, kailangan may government-issued ID ka. It would be a passport, a driver's license, para to make sure hindi ka talaga magpapaulsifi ka. And number three, DICT. I called up Yusek Kaintik of DICT because DICT is the lead agency in charge of the vaccinator, yung cards. No? I told him, the LGUs have uploaded at least 90% right now. It was 85% last week. I think it's 90 or more than 90% right now of our data to them. And they promised us they will be with these IDs by September 1. No? So I told Yusek Kaintik, sir, is it possible for us to have an access for each LGU? Let's say Juan de la Cruz is here, he wants to be vaccinated. Pwede ba malaman namin how many doses he has? And so sabi ni Yusek Kaintik, yes, Chairman, we will give you. But yung September 1. So yun ang aming mga ginawang action dito, Pia, to make sure na hindi talaga, it will not be taken advantage of by certain persons who want to have boosters, no? And they could be liable for falsification for that. No?
But shouldn't the database have been set up before the vaccination drive in the first place? Kasi yung form na yan, yung you sign that you this is your first time to take a vaccine. You have the threat of getting caught, pero you already got the vaccine that you shouldn't have gotten. So parang after the fact, too late, maybe he's thinking, okay lang na I'm in jail, basta mayroon akong booster shot. Di ba parang, isn't that not effective? And don't you think that this should have been set up way before the vaccination drive happened? Why was it not done then?
Well, to answer the first question, no, about us vaccinating before, even without this vaccine card, we've been doing it for ever since this vaccination thing came about. That's why what we've done is we've always requested for government issued ID. With reference to the timing of this, well, it's it's the ICT who's really in charge of this, no? Kaya siguro you could ask them that about this, kung talagang bakit lang nila ginagawa. Yes.
Okay. And last few questions na lang, Chairman. Are we thinking of new ways to emerge from the virus? Because people are also tired, lockdown na lang ng lockdown. Like you said, unsustainable. Well, Secretary Galvez said it's unsustainable. We're ramping up contact tracing and testing, which is good. But are there also new ways that we can be dealing with this kind of change of lifestyle? You mentioned changing the infrastructure, the engineering of places, like the emphasis on ventilation. I notice is not that seen in our policies. We only encourage, for example, establishments to go outdoors. Only encourage outdoor markets. But what are new, maybe even radical ways that you're thinking of that we can live better with the virus and emerge from this pandemic?
Well, actually, this pandemic changed our lifestyle. It changed our mindset. It changed everything. That's why it should be a total review of everything. Kanina, I was talking about the building code, promoting more al fresco. Even our education system, no, magbabago na ito. Makikita mo yung mga bata. Iba talaga yung personal na harapan eh. Pero ngayon, puro online class na lang ang nangyayari sa atin, di ba? Even our transportation, nagbabago na rin. Instead of having 100% capacity, talagang ganito nangyayari. Siguro what we could do right now is, magkaroon tayo ng parang process on how to go about this normalcy. Kasi let's take the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, the values are there, the variants are there. What steps to take towards that? Right now, we've got 50% capacity of each going through a transport system, let's say jeep, etc. But going towards that, what if nakakadalawang bakuna na ako, may booster na ako? Paano naman? Could I now have, just like Joey Concepcion is saying, could I now have a bus na talagang for those who have 2 shots, lahat dito kayo? And for those who have just unvaccinated, oops, 50-50, eto kayo, just to save. This kind of things, no? Talagang buong proseso, ililista ito, pag-uusapan ito. Not only about transportation, everything, no? So, geared towards that. But what is important, Pia, is that we are now at a critical stage here, right now. Itong 2 weeks ito, talagang tatrabaho kami ng gusto ito. We promise you that the mayors are really working so hard. No? You could just imagine they're dealing with vaccination, they're dealing with contact tracing, isolation, and then not only that, may ayuda ka pa, nandiyan pa on the side. Pagkatapos, tumataas pa kaso mo. Talagang hindi na nakakatulog. No? I really leave it to them. No? Talagang nag-iisa. But what is important right now is really to make a checklist of everything and then to put it here and then trabahuin na lang natin yun. No? Sa totoo lang, maski ako, talagang ang dami na namin binago eh. Even our way of working here sa MMDA, iba na rin eh. No? We rely more on technology right now eh. No? Talagang iba, talagang nag-iiba lahat.
Are we going for a higher vaccination daily target now? Kasi dati 250,000 during ECT, pero hindi natin naabot yun. I think we were at 214,000 lang yung highest. So are we going for that or are we even making it higher?
Well, I do not want to promise anything, but we'll try our best. Probably the most practical is between 170 to about 200,000 a day. That's the most practical. And kamukha po sa amin sa Mandaluyong no, ang ginagawa namin talaga, inopen na namin. In fact, 50% who got vaccinated in Mandaluyong are those from outside of Mandaluyong already. And not only that, we're ramping on information so that more people will get vaccinated. The more there are, the better for Metro Manila.
And if there's something, maybe just a way of looking back and looking forward at the same time, if there's something you could change about the initial response of Metro Manila to the pandemic, what would it be? What has Metro Manila learned from crisis like the pandemic and how it can further prepare for crisis in the future? Anong babaguhin niyo, Chairman, dun sa initial response?
Well, ang problema kasi natin dito, no, even the best countries in the whole world, even the first world countries, even those who have vaccinated their own people, double the, even those who have resources, the most powerful countries, maski sila nabibigla eh. This virus is so unpredictable. You cannot not really tell, no? I mean, coming from a Wuhan, infection rate niya is just 2. Now, this one is new. It's just 8. It's more contagious. Talagang marami siyang pinabaksak eh. But kung meron akong babaguhin siguro rito, I'd invest more on the genealogy, the genome, for us to know what's really happening on the ground, on the genome. And number two, on our quarantine, on our quarantine. Because if you talk of variants, everyone, it will come from abroad. Diba? Your quarantine procedure, your quarantine personnel, make them stricter. And then kung marami kang genome talaga na natetest, mapipinpoint mo kaagad eh. Siguro if there's one thing na aanuhin ko, are just these two things.
That's on the level of MMDA, sir. Kasi
I
parang
no,
it's
no,
not
no, no, I'm talking of a level of the national. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
how about MMDA chairperson working in Metro Manila as a region? How could it have been improved?
Well, MMDA, we're just coordinating. Yeah, no, as I've told you, I just coordinate with the mayors. But probably what we could do is that on the level of of uh, of hospitals, no, of hospitals. There are some iba-iba kasi demography ng LGUs eh. You've got rich LGUs, you've got the not so rich LGUs, you've got LGUs that have gated community subdivisions, you've got LGUs that have so many informal settlers. So iba-iba ang approach mo eh. But one thing is common, yung hospital, no? If there's ever na talaga maano na is move more for hospitals, and then probably yung system of testing talaga ang importante dito.
Do we need a stronger MMDA to handle a crisis like this? More powers.
Well, ngayon lang, swerte lang ako, Pia, mababait ang mayor sa akin. Siguro dahil I've been a mayor before at I'm senior mayor. Yung yung daddy ni Mayor Joy, si Mayor Sunny, kasabay kong mayor. Yung mayor ni Mayor Abby, kasabay kong mayor. So tingin nila sa akin, tito na eh. No? Parang ako na yung pinaka-lolo ng lahat eh. Parang daddy na nila ako eh. So at least yung ganong level, napakaswerte ko. But if ever, let's say it's a different person, well, siguro, I think right now, two things ang masasabi ko lang, no? As a student of history and the government. Number one, unlike other regions, we do not have a governor of Metro Manila. No? And number two, ang laking bagay nito talaga, what carried us through this in the whole country, it's really our barangay system. Mga barangay captain natin, yung mga nasa baba, yung micro sa baba. Why? Hanggang sa baba, kita kaagad nila kung sino may sakit eh. Kung kailangan mo ayuda, sila kaagad eh. Everything. So the system of that is uniquely Filipino is really working for us, the barangay system. No? But for Metro, ang makakaiba rito, unlike other region, we do not have a governor of Metro Manila. That's the big difference.
You think we need a governor of Metro Manila?
Well, not necessarily, but we could review the powers. Okay.
Chairman, my last question, hindi naman maiiwasan yung talk of elections because we're now a few months away from filing of candidacies. And the president himself talks about elections during pandemic briefing. So are you running for any position in the 2022 elections, whether local or national?
Okay. Pia, this is on record. I want everyone to just listen here. I'm not running for anything. I'm not running for senator. I'm not running for mayor. I'm just here to do my job. You must remember where I'm coming from. My mom died of COVID, January. Kaya wala akong tulog eh. I promised my mom this. It was, basta mahabang story. Okay? Ayoko na ma-experience na iba yung nangyari sa amin. Okay? It's where I'm coming from. We have so much things to do. We can beat this COVID, Pia. Okay?
Yes, and with that, Chairman, thank you so much for sharing your time, your expertise. Everyone is rooting for Metro Manila mayors and yourself so that we can all beat this pandemic together. So again, thank you for sharing your time, and we will see each other in future briefings. I'm sure we have a long road ahead for all of us. And with that, the best of luck, Chairman.
Thank you, Pia. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching Rappler Talk Newsmaker. Again, I'm Pia Renada. And come again and see our next few episodes where we interview other newsmakers and other policymakers about pressing issues of the day. Goodbye.